Hello and welcome to Daily Records. I am Tommy Burton and we are talking about the Beatles for the month of July. And we are carrying on now with the Beatles live at the BBC. Released on November 30th, 1994. What? This is BBC. Yes, this was a major Beatles release because it was one of the first releases where we were getting unheard or unreleased Beatles performances. And the reason for the title, as you could guess, these were songs and performances that were taken from BBC radio from 1963 to 65. The album is in mono, and it was like I said, it was a major release. A lot of these songs and dialogue had not really been heard by the general public. And so this was the first official release of these songs, and the first official release by the Beatles of unreleased stuff since the Hollywood Bowl recording, which we talked about earlier here on Daily Records. And so it was actually another reason this was such a major release is that it was their first to have unreleased songs since Let It Be. So there was a lot of anticipation about this. Now the songs had been recorded ahead of the broadcast, so there was some retakes and overdubbing, so they're not really live. They're live in the studio performances, and a lot of the songs here are cover versions of stuff they were doing in their live set, of songs from the 50s and 60s. So a lot of it, they were mining that stage set list before Beatlemania took hold. And so a lot of these songs had been floating around amongst collectors as bootlegs. But again, this was an official release. Now there is a companion that's come out since called Live at the BBC Volume 2 that came out a few years back. And so there is a companion, but this is the original. Now the Beatles had performed for 52 BBC radio programs. They started in 1962, and by that point, that if you do your math, that's early Beatlemania, or right when they were starting to take hold into 63 and 64. And so this really is a great document on the rise of the early Beatles. A lot of these performances were aired live. Some had been recorded days and weeks ahead of the broadcast. But, the studio, not Abbey Road quality. So they only had the ability to record in mono. There wasn't any multi-tracking. So very basic overdubs, maybe some retakes of songs, depending on time. Basically, they got sent over the airwaves, and that was that. And so naturally, a lot of these started coming out in the early 70s as bootlegs, and a lot of them were recorded as home recording and stuff. And finally they started gathering these recordings together and getting them ready for release. Now they started talking about this even as early as 1982. And so it was in the rumor mill for many, many years before it finally came out. But they got with George Martin, the longtime Beatles producer, and he went through and selected some material based on the quality of the sound and as well as the performance themselves. And a lot of the songs were never performed on official releases. So this is the only place you're going to have these. So there's a lot of material. Dream Baby, Besame Mucho, different stuff that they were doing and recording. Now some of those, the sound quality wasn't up to snuff, so they remained in the vaults and we never heard them. But I'll Be On My Way was a Lennon McCartney song that the Beatles had recorded for the BBC and did not ever record in the studio. So that's an interesting. It's kind of a Buddy Holly-ish type song, but they gave it away to Billy J. Kramer. So here is the Beatles doing that song. So it's just a fun sort of look at the early Beatles and the songs they were doing around this time. And, it's just, and to hear them talking and just that young Beatle enthusiasm, it's a fun release. I remember when it came out, I just listened to it over and over and over again. Listening to it again recently, I find that I still enjoy these recordings. So as an album, it's really good. What do you think? Like, comment, subscribe, share, follow me on Instagram and Twitter. It's TommyBurton75. In the meantime, I will see you all again tomorrow with another Daily Record.